Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette, broadcasting live from a very dreary and rainy Cape May County, New Jersey. And my guest this hour's name is Scott Ringlein. He's the founding partner of the Energy Alliance Group of North America. He's going to talk to us today about how sustainability practices helps business and community. So I'm excited to have this conversation because I'm not, how can I put this? Like not really into the sustainability thing. I'm a very bad environmentalist. Let's just put it that way. So maybe he'll convince me. I feel like I'm one person and sustainability is not that important for me. I know that's a terrible thing to say, but it's the truth. So I'm hoping, I like to get people with other perspectives. I'm hoping he's going to convince me that my one personage contribution to not being sustainable is going to make a real difference. I'm sure that he is, and we'll be talking to him in a few minutes. But before we do that, a little bit of Money Talk news. Before I get to like the actual business news, I would be, I guess, remiss if I didn't talk a bit about the fact that I mean the United States, and President Trump made the call to kill a terrorist in Iran yesterday, and it's all over the news and all the debates along party lines about whether or not it was the right decision. In fact, I got a text message from a relative of mine who's overseas right now, and he doesn't know a whole lot about these types of issues. He's like, but I know you know a lot about this. So what's he's like, everybody had me cracking up. He's like, everybody on my Facebook page is suddenly a political professor. I thought to myself, isn't that always the way it is when something like this happens? But he knows that I'm involved in politics and kind of I pay attention to the news and stuff like that. So he was asking me, what the deal was with this whole thing. And I said, listen, my understanding is that this guy is a bad guy. He killed, 600 some odd Americans and it has injured a couple thousand more. And he was about to do some serious damage. Now that's, who knows what with the 100% real deal is, but that's the United States position on that. And they wanted to take him out before he took out some more Americans. And that was the way it went. And he said, see, I didn't hear that side of the story. It's unfortunate that everything is so partisan now that we can't just look at, a situation and think, okay, is this something that was good for the United States? Like it always has to be about something partisan these days, or at least that's what it seems to me. That it's always whether or not you agree with the president, you will take the side against him if he does anything that he does. Like I think he could cure cancer, he could save puppies, he could, anything that he could do like that, and people would be against him. Now, of course, I say that as a card-carrying Trump supporter, not loving his personality per se, but as a president and a policy maker, I do appreciate him. So I don't know, but that's the deal. That's the official stance, and that's why his foreign policy is generally to stay out of stuff. So I feel like if he didn't have to go over there and do that, he would not have. That's just my particular feeling on the matter based on how he's been. His America First policy is to leave other people alone. And for us to kind of do our own thing and not to be trying to nation build and all that kind of stuff. Unless, of course, you're going to kill a bunch of Americans. And in that case, he feels like he's going to have to take some kind of action. So that's what happened there. And I felt like I should probably mention that since, it's such a big deal in the news. Another thing that was in the news recently is that drug prices are going up again. And I find that to be an odd especially since both sides of the aisle seem to be fighting to get drug prices down. It says according to a report on LinkedIn, hundreds of drug prices have risen in the new year, an average of 5.8%. And we know that is, 5.8, drugs cost enough without having to go up even 5.8%. Now, it's a smaller increase than in 2019, but it's still an increase. Now, you have to know that when the government talks about increases, usually they talk about something. When they talk about cutbacks, they talk about something not increasing. They don't talk about it in the same ways that we talk about it in our normal budgets. So it's just I found it to be an odd thing, and maybe they're raising drug prices, bracing themselves for the regulations to bring drug prices down, and for the drug prices to be revealed to people to have more competition and stuff like that. Perhaps that's why that's happening in the market. I'm not sure. Another thing that I found interesting in the news is that job cuts accelerated last year, according to another report on LinkedIn. I found that to be odd, especially since job cuts were the smallest last month since July 2018. And at the same time, 2019 was ranked as the worst year for reductions overall since 2005 and 2011. Now, I found that to be bizarre since we're at a 50-year low as far as unemployment is concerned at 3.5%. And this is according to the U.S. Department of Labor. This is the data they're releasing on December next week. So I found that to be kind of an odd coincidence. There's some people who are saying that perhaps it's just because of the holidays and things like that why that's happening. But I found that to be a bizarre coincidence. Another thing that I actually heard this yesterday, that U-Haul is one of the most recent companies that won't hire people who smoke as employers, and in order to cut their healthcare costs. Now, it's interesting, and also for the well-being of their team members is what they're saying, because everybody knows that smoking is not good for your health, and it's also not good for people who are around the smoke. And apparently, U-Haul will not even interview or hire people who smoke or vape starting February 1st. That's kind of crazy. And smokers are not a protected class, so I don't think there's anything that they can really do about it, to be honest. But I'm not mad about it. I don't particularly care for cigarette smoke. So, but I work in a school. You're not allowed to smoke in a school anyway, unless of course you're a student. That was a joke. But there are some students who definitely smoke, who smell like smoke, or maybe their parents smoke so much that's why they smell like smoke. I want to say hi to everybody in the Facey chat. Keith Little, Doug, Jeff Booker, how are you? I hope that you all are well. Thank you for joining me in the Facey chat. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest this hour is Scott Ringlein. He's going to talk to us about how sustainability practices helps business and community. I'm excited about that. We'll be back in a few moments. A brand new Ron Edwards notebook coming your way right now.
So, President Trump signed off on another massive spending bill full of wasteful uses for our tax dollars and a few insults thrown in for good measure. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. $1.5 trillion? Are you kidding me? The Democrats howled to the moon, complaining about money needed to secure our USA southern border with a good border wall and other security measures. But yet, they were solidly on board for a $4 billion payment to secure Jordan's border. Congressional Gumps threw in $22 million to help the Serbian Regional Center for Agricultural Development improve the quality of Serbian cheese to match international cheese standards. Back to the border issue. I just can't get over the fact that congressional Democrats and rhinos didn't deem our southern border protection to be worth as much as they allotted for Jordan, to which they approved $4 billion, yet only $1.5 billion for our southern border. That, my fellow Americans, is an insult. We all know that Democrats and a few rhinos hope to spin our republic into oblivion by imploding our economy under a mountain of debt. That is yet another insult. But the biggest insult of all is President Trump signing this wasteful madness after saying that he would not again after signing the prior wasteful spending bill. I'm Ron Edwards. Check out theronedwards.talkspot.com for news updates and other great stuff. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
Making a living can be tough these days with so many jobs going overseas. If you love numbers and puzzles and want job security, you can become a tax specialist with an amazing 6-month tax course from Tax Mama. Operate your own tax practice locally or anywhere in the world where there are American taxpayers. It's a great way to write off your trips to visit family for months at a time. Everything you need to pass the IRS 3 special enrollment examinations is included in this course. Visit irsexams.school. And if you need more than 6 months, that's okay. Take your time. You're in the course until you pass the exams or until you unsubscribe and reject Tax Mama's emails.
Welcome back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. And my guest today is Scott Ringlein. He's a founding partner of the Energy Alliance Group of North America. He's going to talk to us today about how sustainability practices helps business and community. A little bit about Scott. He is the founder and CEO, like I said, of the Alliance Group of North America. He was raised as a farmer and educated as an engineer and trained in the auto industry. This led to the creation of a company that develops solutions to what many people say is impossible, making our world more energy efficient and less wasteful. He started EAG in 2011 to develop and deploy innovative solutions to energy, waste, and environmental challenges. With his team's expertise of combining technical and financial solutions, EAG has been solving the challenges that companies face when considering efficiency and conservation improvements. Scott also takes pride in doing good while doing well. So recently awarded a trademark. Scott's innovative program known as Kilowatts for a Cause will not only increase the adoption of solar as renewable energy source, but also provide a renewable source of funding to charity partners in over a 20 to 25 year period. And without further ado, Scott Ringlein.
Hello, Melanie. How are you this evening?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on. So is there anything that I left out of your bio that you might want to tell the audience? I told you I'm sleepy today, didn't I? The audience.
No, you covered it. It was a mouthful. But like you said, I spent most of my career in the automotive industry, and then in 2008, that abruptly came to an end, along with literally tens of thousands of others here in the great state of Michigan. And one thing led to another, and I ended up getting into the energy industry, and been working there ever since.
Excellent. And so that's that. What made you become interested in the energy industry? I know some people are either interested or they're not. Are there any statistics or anything that some people kind of make fun of the energy industry, saying it's not, don't take it all that seriously, that kind of thing. So what made you interested in sustainability?
It really just, I really just stumbled into it. So when I left automotive, the first company I started was a business planning company where I worked with startups on developing their business plans. And out of that came an opportunity to work for the Department of Energy and Obama administration on the American Recovery Act. And that's where I was really introduced to a wide variety of technologies in that field. And in 2011, that wrapped up. I was at a networking session, met a guy that was in that field, And really the game changer was the ability to secure funding to actually do the improvements, because statistically, most companies are not making these types of improvements to their facilities. And it's not because the technology doesn't exist. It's having the right funding source so that they can achieve, the financial hurdles that they have in place for capital expenses.
Now, that's a good point to bring about sustainability. Now, when you say efficiency and sustainability, what are we talking about as far as business is concerned? What specifically are we talking about?
So they go hand in hand. Sustainability is more about looking at everything you do. I mean, from wastewater to recyclables, energy conservation, water conservation, and everything. So sustainability is really the ultimate goal is, hey, we offset everything that we use in some other way. So, solar, we're producing solar to offset electricity use. We're capturing rainwater and reusing it for sprinkler systems, or maybe just in your toilets and stuff like that. But efficiency is really more on the technical side, and it could be lighting, it could be the types of appliances that you might have at the office using Energy Star versus non-Energy Star, controls, and then you get into heating and cooling and windows and doors and roofs and stuff like that. So there's really a separation between becoming more sustainable versus more efficient, although they go hand in hand together.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So are there benefits to companies and organizations to being more energy efficient and using renewable energy? Like, are there some foreseeable benefits where you could pitch that to people and convince them that it's a good thing to do?
Yep. So the big issue that's out there in industry today is that typically when you're doing large-scale efficiency improvements, so whether it's water conservation, energy efficiency, or renewable energy, there's a few of them out there that we call low-hanging fruit. So to do a lighting improvement, you're going to see a return on an investment fairly quick. But then when you get into larger capital spends, like you're going to upgrade your HVAC or your chillers or replacing windows and roofs or actually installing renewables, the challenge is that a lot of the businesses out there, especially your larger industrial commercial businesses, when it comes to capital, they're looking for some type of payback within the first couple of years. And the traditional sources of funding out there typically don't make that work. Even with renewables, so like solar, if you go out and you get a loan or traditional debt to put in solar, you might get a 10-year term, maybe a 15-year term. And if you're doing something on a large scale, you're just not going to see those types of paybacks. On the other hand, with that type of investment, especially renewables, you're investing in something that's going to last 25, 30 years before you have to touch it. But in the business world, the expense of maintaining these improvements versus the capital outlay to install them, they're completely separated. So that's the big issue out there is most businesses want to do it. I mean, we have access to lots of survey data, and it's upwards in the 90 percentile that they want to be more efficient. They want to reduce their utility costs. But then when you look at how well they're doing, it's around 2% that get deployed. And it always comes back to the money, the funding. And so one of the things that's now changing out in industry is that there's some creative funding programs out there that, part of what we do are educate businesses about what's out there and how it can be used, where, now we can do solar and actually have a payback in year one rather than waiting 5 or 10 years, because there's funding mechanisms out there that allow you to get money for 15, 20, 25 years to do these types of improvements.
Okay, and so what are some of these changes that organizations should make? Like, are there some, like, right off the bat, recommendations that you usually make for organizations to move toward renewable energy and improving their efficiency?
So we do things a little bit differently. Most of our competitors are going to go in and either sell a specific technology, or they're going to go in, conduct an audit, identify the improvement, tell them, okay, here's the things that you should be doing. That's typically where the conversation ends, because the next part of it is the financial side of the equation. So we do it completely opposite. When we meet with a client, the first thing we focus on are the funding options that they have to do anything. So we're not in there trying to sell them anything at first. We're really like, okay, let's look at the money side of the equation first, because without money, all this great stuff that you can do, it's just not going to happen. So we focus on that, and then we go in and we identify all the different types of improvements that could be done through the funding mechanism. And then we narrow it down to what is it that you really need versus what you want. And so once you know where the money's coming from and the type of budget that you have, the technical side is the easy side of the equation. So one of our strengths and one of the values that we bring to a client is the knowledge of these mechanisms that are out there to actually make these projects move forward. They're busy running their businesses. That's not what they do. And 9 times out of 10, they're going back to the same traditional source that they've always used for capital, whether it's internal funding, or they go to a bank or some type of partner. Times have changed. There's lots of other resources out there, and we're able to show them that there is a different way. You should really look at it. It mitigates your risk. And when you do these improvements, the benefit is it allows you to reduce your operation cost and actually put some money back in your pocket. That's our main goal. Is we tell our clients we don't want your money, and in fact, every day we want you to put a little bit back into your pocket so that the cost to implement is less than the savings that you're going to achieve through the reduction in utilities and the reduction in maintenance.
I would think that's definitely going to be more appealing to companies. Are there different organizations that are more likely to participate in sustainability than others? Like, are there organizations that are more prone?
So we see it more from larger, like, corporations that maybe have multiple sites. So it's more of a company directive that, okay, here's our sustainability goals for year 2020. And then, there's plans put in place, there's budgets put together. The smaller businesses and even some of the smaller, commercial industrial businesses, they're looking at ways to reduce their cost. That's their main goal. Sustainability is really not part of the conversation. It just seems items that cost me a lot to operate our building, whether it's electrical, sewer, water costs. And so that's what we're trying to help them achieve, is really just reduce their operational costs, but at the same time, improving their facility. That's the secondary benefit, is that, hey, now your employees have better lighting, maybe better heating and cooling, and or maybe just better comfort levels all around from a large facility improvement. So we always talk about the soft benefits of doing these. Time and time again, we've seen some studies from commercial real estate that if you implement these types of improvements, one, your staff is going to be a little bit more productive, but then especially those that have tenants, you're going to have tenants that are more likely to stay, more likely to pay a higher rent. And then if you're looking to sell the property that you've invested in, well, now you're going to get a greater return on your investment because you've added value and the next owner has a better facility.
That makes a lot of sense. The only thing I know about energy efficiency are things like solar panels. And my unpaid publicist, Doug Poss, in the Facey chat said that solar panels are not efficient in the North frequently at all. My guess is you would disagree with that.
I would disagree only from the standpoint. So I'm from Michigan. And if you look at the location of Germany, it's pretty much in the same location. They have the same weather patterns. They're one of the largest solar producers and users in the world. So, yes, I will agree that performance in Michigan is different than, say, performance in Arizona. However, when we do the models, we're taking all of that into account. And when we can get access to, say, a 25-year term, fixed rate, non-recourse funding to do this, well, now you can make something that isn't as efficient be just as efficient and cheaper than buying power. And in the state of Michigan, in general, we have pretty cheap power. In the range of 10 to maybe 13 cents per kilowatt hour, unlike the East Coast, West Coast, or Hawaii. They have huge expenses. But even with cheap power, we're still installing solar on large scale. We did a 1 megawatt system a couple of years ago for a nonprofit. They were paying 12 cents a kilowatt hour. Now they have a fixed cost of 9 cents a kilowatt hour, and they have production at a fixed cost for a 25 to 30 year period. So those are the things that you really have to take in consideration, not just I'm north, we don't get as much sun, solar's not going to work. Gotcha.
Now, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, it works, but you have to take into consideration all the properties around it. They have models as far as how much sun you're going to get and the amount of hours that are going to be 100% production versus maybe only 20 or 30% production.
Okay, that makes sense. So has the technology for sustainability and efficiency, has that evolved over time? Like, is it a little bit easier to pitch because that industry has gotten better over time?
Certainly. I mean, again, it always comes down to the money, but the technology is by far superior compared to what it was just, say, 10 years ago, especially in the LED market. I mean, if you went to a hardware store or a building supply store 10 years ago, you would have seen maybe one or two LED options, and the bulbs were $15. Fast forward 10 years, now you can buy an LED bulb for 99 cents. I see them on sale for 99 cents.
Do you really? Because they seem to be really expensive to me.
Maybe we need to find a better place for you to shop.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. I've not seen them cheap, even in places like Big Lots. I've only seen them at like maybe $5 at the very least.
Okay. But so what's a little bit different though too, and that's how we educate our clients, and whether it's a consumer or a business, the first thing they look at is the cost, and then they never take into consideration the rest of the story when you look at life cycle costs. So yeah, okay, you have a 99-cent bulb and you have a $5 bulb. That 99-cent bulb might last 10,000 hours. That $5 bulb might last 50,000 hours, and it comes with a 5 or a 10-year warranty. You're much better off over a long time to make that investment into the more efficient technology. However, especially in the business sector, they don't look at both sides of those equations. They look at capital. So they're trying to keep their capital down, trying to, get some type of return on investment really quick. No consideration of, if we buy the cheap model, we're going to spend a lot more to maintain it down the road. That comes out of an operations budget. We don't, that's not considered. Where when we're involved with projects, and especially with some of the funding mechanisms that we utilize, it's all driven by life cycle cost. And so when we do an A to B comparison, we're showing the client that, okay, if you keep what you have, this is what it's costing you, not only from a utility expense, but from a material and labor maintenance expense. And then we compare that to what's being proposed, so they truly understand how are we going to be able to generate enough savings to offset this investment. And when you have options of taking very, very efficient lighting, where you can reduce cost by 30 to 70%, and now you can combine it with things that maybe you don't get that type of return on, like windows, doors, or roofs, you can actually make it feasible to do from a financial standpoint. And so that's the challenge out there, is that while technology has advanced, you're still not seeing the deployment that you would expect. For instance, just lighting and lighting control in the United States only has an adoption rate of around 2%. So we got a long way to go to improve the buildings.
I have a question in the Facey chat. Because I was in Facebook chat, I was wondering the same thing. Doug asked if you've ever tried the warranty return and replacement in a non-commercial setting. And I had to laugh, because when you said that about the replacement and the warranties, I thought, but who's going to really keep that receipt and say, okay, it only lasted 10 years. I'm taking it back. You know what I mean? It was supposed to last 20 years, but it'll, you know what I mean?
And you are correct. That is a problem, especially on the consumer side, is that people don't do that. I'm an engineer by trade. I'm a stickler for keeping track of that type of stuff. So, I am the guy that's walking back into, the hardware store or Lowe's or whatever, returning the product and getting a new one if it's not lasting that long. But, to his point, that is an issue out there. You're buying something that should last 5 to 10 years. You throw the receipt away. It burns out in 3 years. What's the first thing you do? Throw it away and you go get a new one. And so from an investment standpoint, that's probably not a good investment, because you're not taking advantage of what's being offered by the manufacturer, which is a longer warranty. But on the industrial commercial side, one of the things that we make sure of is that there is a program put in place. It's monitored on an annual basis so that if there is warranty or end-of-life replacement, it's identified when we put together the proposal, but more importantly, there are systems and processes in place to take care of it on behalf of the client. The client's not chasing people around. There's just agreements in place where one phone call, it's taken care of, and it's installed.
I think that's a good idea, and that's something that your company does for other organizations.
Yeah. So one of the funding programs it's new. It's only been around the U.S. for since 2008, but we've been using it now since 2012, and the program's called Property Assess Clean Energy. And what it does is it allows a building owner to take on a special tax assessment, which have been around for years. It's used to put in roads and build libraries and schools, but it's never been used on buildings. Buildings have never been considered infrastructure. Well, now you can take this tax assessment on. You can get funding up to 20 to 30% of the property value, and it's only used for efficiency, conservation, and renewable energy measures. Part of that of the whole program is that you're looking at the life cycle costs. You're not just looking at the capital investment. You're looking at the life cycle costs, and you're integrating the long-term maintenance plan at the same time. And the savings that you're going to achieve is paying for all of it now, not just the installation. It's also going to pay for long-term warranty costs, replacement costs. So, for example, we're just getting ready to do a project in Michigan for a 1 million square foot mall. It was built in the late 60s. It's never been touched. So it's got all the original lighting and everything. And we're doing, a $2.5 million lighting upgrade, putting in controls and all that. And it's a 15-year program. And over that 15-year program, they're reducing their utility costs for lighting by 70%. And they're reducing their maintenance cost by another 50-some%. And then we incorporate a maintenance program so that over that 15-year period, it's all taken care of, and the savings is greater than that assessment cost that they incur every year. And it's cash flow positive. So, this particular project, they're cash flow positive by 40% in year one.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And we have lots of examples that we're able to do that through a combination of the technology and the funding mechanisms that are out there. And that's really the most important thing, is that it's not just the technology that's making this happen, because the technical side of it has been around for a while. It's new funding tools that you can get access to actually make sense to do it. I can actually achieve some type of return right away because now I have access to this type of funding. And that's what we focus on, is coming up with that solution that includes not only the funding, the technology, but then we also get into the incentives and tax credits that would go along with it. Because those are a lot of things that most companies don't really know about. That's not their job to know about it, and they just go on. For instance, I know you had stated that you're a supporter of Trump. With his tax bill that was passed right away, now you put a new roof on a building, you can depreciate the entire roof in year one. And we just put together a project proposal for a company where they had a 70,000 square foot roof. They needed to replace it. It was going to cost $600,000, and they were not going to spend the money. They brought us in. We were able to put a proposal together, replace the roof, install a 1 megawatt ballast mounted solar system on the roof, get a 25-year warranty, a maintenance program, and it's cash flow positive from day one all the way through 25 years.
Now
and the whole thing is funded.
That had to surprise them that was like that. I have another question in the Facey chat. Doug asked if you said you were an engineer. Are you an anti-nuclear engineer? I guess he wants to know whether or not you are against nuclear energy as opposed to other forms of energy.
I'm not necessarily against it, but what it lacks is that when we go into these types of technologies, we never think the entire process through, like long-term waste. No different than when Bush said, all right, tomorrow we're going to use fuel made out of corn. Okay, well, that's great. I'm a farm boy by trade. How do you get all the corn to the facility? And then, where are you going to do all this work and stuff like that? Because all the corn's out in the middle of nowhere. Or like electric vehicles. I'm a full supporter of electrical vehicles. However, I have a place up north. It's a 7-hour drive. There's not one charging station between my house and where I would drive to. And so I see a lot of these technologies that they're quick to move forward with them, but then they never really take the time to look at all the pieces to actually make it work. And there's a lot of development now on micro nuclear systems, where no different than solar grid and micro utilities, very similar to utilizing hydropower. Before coal came around, we powered a lot of the stuff through water, and then they abandoned it because coal got cheap. Now we're abandoning coal because solar's cheaper, and now we're starting to see more and more going back to hydropower because it's cheaper. So,
well, that's
I'm
always
a fan.
That's always going to run supply and demand, right? Basic economics.
That's right.
I'd love to hear a little bit about the PACE program, the Property Assessed Clean Energy Program. What is that, and how is that helpful to organizations?
Yeah. So I think it's probably the greatest funding mechanism that this country has seen in a very, very long time. So the way it works, it's actually a state law, so it's passed by state legislation, but then it has to be adopted locally because states do not have anything to do with property tax.
I was going to say, you mean your local municipality has to adopt it?
Right. And so what it does is a tax assessment. Like if they put a new sewer on in a road, how do they pay for it? Every building along that road gets assessed a special assessment, and they make a payment every year to pay for that sewer because they're the ones that benefit for it. If they sell the building, they don't pay off that assessment. It stays with the building. It's secured by the building, and the next owner takes it over. So it's the same exact structure, but now it's not mandatory. It's voluntary. You got a building. You're in a PACE zone. Hey, I want to take on a special assessment to improve my building. You take on the assessment, typically 20 to 30% of your value. Because it's secured by the property, not the property owner, it's real property versus personal property. It stays with the property. It's non-recourse, so there's no personal guarantee. When you sell the building, that assessment payment stays with the building along with the improvement. So the next owner is getting that benefit, no different than a new sewer system. So now you're able to get money, unsecured, long-term, 20, 25 years. It's not a debt. So on your balance sheet, it's treated as an expense. It's a tax burden, not a debt burden. And if you sell the building, or, God forbid, you go in default, they're not running after you because it's tied to the building. And when the building's sold, typically what's the first dollar that comes out? Back tax payments.
Of course.
So it mitigates the owner's risk. It mitigates the local municipality's risk. And then the money is not coming through public entities. It's all being funded through typically either private bond funds or private equity funds. So here in Michigan, we work with several lenders. They're managing family funds, 401ks, pension, insurance funds, and they're looking for a long-term fixed rate, less risky investment. And nothing better than property that's basically backed by the government. So this program is now available in 35 states in the U.S. It's made its way into Canada. Europe just adopted it. Australia's using it. And the issue is that most people just don't know about it. So hence, having the platform like your show and others, and then I speak at a lot of conferences to really educate people that there is a way to do what you want to do. It's these new funding mechanisms that are out there. And for your listeners, the best place to educate themselves is a website called pacenation.org. It's a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. It tracks everything that has to do with PACE in the U.S. And you can actually click on an active map, click on your state, and you can find out, is it adopted? Where is it at? Is it in your local community? And then if not, it even gives you instructions on, okay, how do you approach your municipality about becoming a PACE district? Because it doesn't cost them anything. They're already doing tax assessments. They're already collecting taxes. The money's actually coming from a different source. So, one of the things you asked about is sustainability and how does that help communities? Well, this is a great economic development tool because you're not eroding your tax base to get businesses to come in, and you're not eroding your, taxpayer dollars by, handing it over to people that buy these buildings. And, there's so many communities that have older buildings on their tax rolls after the mid-2000 meltdown. They're looking for ways to get people to come in and buy them and improve them. Well, geez, you become a PACE district. Now these companies have access to funding to improve their building without pulling a dime out of their pocket.
And I'm sure that's mostly what people are looking for. We're up against the close of the show. Can you tell people how to get in touch with your company if they want to avail themselves of your services?
Yeah, so I'll give you the long version. Our website is www.energyalliancegroup.org, or they can just type in on their browser what's possible.today, and it'll take you right to our contact page.
Excellent. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I learned a lot.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Melanie.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hopefully my audience did too. I put both websites in the Facey chat, energyalliancegroup.org and pacenation.org. Thank you so much for that information. I want to thank everyone who's listening to the show, everybody in the Facey chat. If you're listening to this as a download, which most of you do, on any iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, however it is you're listening to the show, I appreciate you so very much. And remember, gang, all of this is very important because after all, it's your money. Have a great night.